What's going on, guys? It's Brandon again, and today I'm bringing you a brand new video. And today we're taking a look at a game from 2010, but the game is still running strong, and that game is Battlefield Bad Company 2. And it's safe to say Battlefield Bad Company 1 and 2 are my favorite Battlefield games out of them all. They are just the greatest Battlefield games in my opinion. And it's funny that I should still go back and play a game from 2010. I mean, Battlefield Bad Company 2 is just a perfect blend of all the Battlefields in my opinion. And you guys might be thinking, why am I posting a Battlefield Bad Company 2 video? It is pretty out of the blue for me to post something like this. I said when I first brought out my channel that I'm not going to be posting too many mainstream first-person shooters. I really don't consider Battlefield Bad Company 2 to be a mainstream first-person shooter. So I just want to do something fun. I mean, I've been playing War Thunder a lot lately, and I'm only playing War Thunder because of the enduring confrontation. Other than that, I'm really not digging the realistic battles as usual. So I decided I just want to jazz it up a little and put out something else. And Battlefield Bad Company 2 is something that isn't really looked at anymore. It's something that's, you know, overshadowed a lot by all the new Battlefield games. But honestly, the Battlefield Bad Company series is the best out of them all. I'm just gonna put it plain and simple. And it's funny how a game that everybody loves, like Battlefield Bad Company 2, hasn't had a third iteration into the series. And I remember a while back I was reading an article on GameSpot, and it said, one of the developers said, it's scary to go back and try to remake an old fan favorite when actually no one can really put their finger on what it is that people love. And that was Carl Magnus Trodson that said that. I'm not sure if I said his name right, so apologies. And I mean, I can see how they would be afraid to release a game like Battlefield Bad Company 3. I mean, maybe they're saving it. Maybe they're saving it for a day when the Battlefield franchise is like in dire straits and they really need something to lift up the morale of the Battlefield community. Because let's be honest, Battlefield 4 and Battlefield Hardline kind of flopped for me, in my opinion, as a Battlefield player. And I was just honestly really disappointed with the games. But going back to what I said earlier, what makes Battlefield Bad Company 2 and Battlefield Bad Company such great games? So let's go ahead and start with the single player. Not very many Battlefield games have a solid single player. I mean, Battlefield 3 had a decent one, Battlefield 4 was kind of I mean, it was okay, but there's nothing memorable about it. So please tell me why I remember Battlefield Bad Company's storyline like it was yesterday. I mean, my favorite part of that game is when Haggard's running down the hill screaming, "Gold, I want my gold," or something like that. And then all the sirens at that facility start going off and you have to fight your way to this gold facility or whatever it was. And then my other favorite part of the single player is when you're driving down the road in that Russian Vodnik and Haggard's like, "Pull over, I need to let Big Jim and the two little twins loose." It's like, why do I remember that stuff? Because it was funny and I had a blast playing that game. Which also brings me to my next point. The characters were incredibly memorable with their own traits. You had Sarge, Preston Marlowe, Sweetwater, and Haggard. I mean, those characters were amazing, they were funny, and they were serious, and they all had their own thing going for them, you know? So that's one of the reasons why the game is so popular, and I love it so much, for the single player and the characters. You can't say that a lot about video games these days. So let's go ahead and talk about something else. How about the soundtrack? The soundtrack to Battlefield Bad Company and Battlefield Bad Company 2 was amazing. You know, it was like dun 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 dun. And I mean, it took elements from Battlefield 1942 and Battlefield 1943 types of music, but then you move into Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 and you just get this like dubstep style remix and you're just wondering, what is this? I don't know what this is. It doesn't sound like Battlefield 1942 or Battlefield 1943 or the Bad Company soundtrack. It's just not memorable. And while we're at it, let's talk about another franchise, the Medal of Honor franchise. I remember the soundtracks of those games like it was yesterday. They're very memorable and they're very amazing. It doesn't seem like games these days work on their soundtracks. Okay, so we touched on single player and the soundtracks, and let's go ahead and move into the multiplayer. Now, I can sum up the multiplayer with one word: simple. The Battlefield Bad Company series has an incredibly simple multiplayer. For example, there's only two weapon attachments, the red dot and the ACOG. There isn't all these fancy, useless gun attachments that you really don't need. It's just straight up and simple. But then you can combine that with perks that actually do benefit you and your weapons. That way it basically completely levels the playing field and you're even on all terms. That's where I honestly think Battlefield 4 and Battlefield Hardline went incredibly wrong. I think that Battlefield 3 was really good, but in Battlefield 4 and Battlefield Hardline, they just tried to mash everything into one game. And I'm going to give you a word of advice, DICE. Stop trying to do too much. Just come back and make the game simple. And also another factor about the Battlefield Bad Company series is that the map design is superb. Everything is well thought out in conjunction with the destructible environments. What I like to see is completely destructible buildings in the games. I mean, honestly, you don't like that building? Let's just get rid of it. Just throw it out of the way. Don't need it anymore. Completely demolish it. That way no one else can get up in there. And I mean, I will be honest, the newer Battlefield games like Battlefield 4 do have destructible environments. I mean, I'm not forgetting about the giant skyscraper that you can topple. But in my opinion, there's a difference between leveling a skyscraper, one skyscraper, and leveling a whole bunch of other buildings around a map, if that makes sense. So DICE, please work on your map designs. Map designs are a huge part of this. In Battlefield 4, it doesn't seem like some maps are designed for the game mode. In Battlefield Bad Company 2, the maps are specifically designed for the game modes, you can tell. I mean, it's amazing how a game mode in Battlefield Bad Company 2 can be designed perfectly for Conquest and Rush. But anyway, guys, I think I'm going to go ahead and stop right here for this video. I'm going to be making a part 2 to this because there's a lot more that I can talk about, and I don't want to feel like I'm cramming it all in one video, so I don't want to give you guys basically information overload. But tell me, guys, what you think about the Battlefield Bad Company franchise and Battlefield franchise in general. I'm really interested because Battlefield Bad Company 2 was about the last major FPS that I played on consoles before moving to the PC. And then once I moved to the PC, I just explored a whole other wide variety of games like War Thunder and, you know, many other games like Red Orchestra. So again, tell me what you guys think below. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. My name's Brandon, and as always, have a nice day.